Come on.
Come on.
Do something. Preferably her. Just in case you didn't know, I'm Matthew.
And I'm Brian.
And this is Road Trip Recap. Spoilers up ahead, as today we talk about the Provenance episode of Supernatural.
And today we're also going to be ironing out some of the properties of iron.
Excellent. All right, buckle up. Let's go. We start out today's episode just jumping right into it. We got a couple of reoccurring actors right off the bat. Headcanon's really not going to work out for these ones, as we'll see here in a bit. So we start, we get a look at the painting. Starting off, we see the dad in the painting, Isaiah Merchant, who is played by who?
Lyndon Banks.
Lyndon Banks, you say?
Lyndon Banks, I say.
Who we see come back later in season 6, I believe. He plays Mr. Brennan, which is notable as the guy who summoned the fairies to help him in his watch shop.
Yeah.
As we scroll down a little bit further, we see, the daughter Melanie Merchant, who is played by Jodelle Ferlin. She comes back all the way in season 15 as Emily, who is a witch, daughter of a witch, sister of a witch. They got their whole thing where they witch it up and
a witchy bloodline.
Yeah, I mean, she's not too fond of her sister and all that stuff. But anyways, that's a ways away. And then we get people talking about the creepy painting, and that's why there's an open bar at the charity auctions. So anyways, we have Mark, played by Curtis Caravaggio. He comes back in season 8 as Spencer. This is the one where you have the witches. So a lot of witches in this one, or people coming back as witches. But this is the one where they have their animal familiars that turn into people, the people that turn into animals. So he's the witch Spencer in that one.
Okay.
So anyways, they're talking about the creepy painting and whatnot. They're getting ready for nighttime activities, and we see the painting moving on its own. And then was a razor in the painting, but it's gone.
See.
So painting is moving, razor's gone, and then I wrote in my notes over here that the painting painted, as it painted the room red with blood.
Yes.
In case you didn't catch on that.
I was catching on slowly.
Well, just in case you didn't know, that's blood.
That's blood.
And this is murder.
I'm concerned.
So we then cut to Sam and Dean. They're at a bar. Sam's looking through, newspaper articles, and Dean's playing the reality TV show talent scout, trying to pick up chicks at the bar or whatever.
Yeah, Lord.
We get to, Sam has gotten the article about the Telescas that were, they had their throats slit, everything was locked down. Again, Dean's kind of the one, maybe it's not our thing. And Sam noted that there were 3 similar murders over time, but we're talking 1912, 1945, 1970, it's not something that most people would connect the dots to, but apparently John did. So it was noted in the journal that was an area of interest. So this is around New Paltz, New York, is kind of the area. So we're in a New York area. So they decide to check it out, and it's one of those they make it seem, again, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here, but they make it seem like, Sam's just looking at random things. They decide to go check this out. But Sam wakes Dean up in the Impala the next day, and they're already there. It's let's check it out. We're here already.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's just something where they came to that area as they're looking it up or looking into things. That part just kind of confused me a little bit, because Sam's like, hey, look, this is a thing. And Dean's like, well, it might not be our thing. And he's like, well, we got these, they're already in the town.
Well, I mean, it could be one of those that he checks up on things as they arrive into the area.
That could be.
And it's like...
So they're in that town. He has a local newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
He sees something suspicious, checks it with the journal, and is like, aha!
Yep. Which makes you kind of wonder, how much downtime do they actually have? How many times do they drive like through a town in like middle America, or drive through some town, and they stop and they look and they go, okay, this one's a bust. Where are we heading to next? What are we doing next?
You know, that reminds me of because I reference Batman a lot anyways in these, but you know, when you watch like the cartoons or the movies or whatever, you know, you just see Batman going out and fighting crime like every night. And if you watch on some of those, there will be like offhanded remarks where like Bruce is talking to Alfred, and he'll mention that he's been out every night this month and hasn't seen anything. You know, maybe take the night off.
Yeah.
But he's Batman, so he's not going to take the night off.
So he never takes the night off.
And so we don't see those nights where he just goes out, drives around, and then goes home and nothing happens. And so potentially, you know, Sam and Dean have the same thing where they just might have a week of just like driving around and not having any luck with anything.
And nothing's happened. Yeah, there's a thought. So anyway, yes.
Anyways, so they're in town. They're gonna check out the Teleska's place, but it's clean, as in like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
All of their stuff is at auction.
They moved quick. My gosh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't really know. You know what? We probably know. I don't know how long it's been. So I've discovered that I half pay attention when I watch these because I'm writing notes, and so I take time to write those notes. And that's where I get these issues with Supernatural that don't pan out to anything because I'm just not paying attention. So yeah, we'll just go with they move quick. One other thing that I made note of is this is the first kind of instance where we see the Impala not being shiny. Like it's kind of dusty, a little dirty.
Starting to show its wear.
When I first was watching this, I remember noting, I was like, man, why is it all like dusty and everything? Which we get into in the next episode, where they just kind of set it up an episode beforehand just so John can give Dean hell over not taking care of the Impala, which in every other episode...
It always looks great.
Yeah, it's polished and washed, and John, please don't look at my car right now. Sam and Dean go to the auction. They're posing as art dealers, kind of. Mm-hmm. As Dean's being Dean and, you know, grabbing food. And as we get Daniel Blake coming up and, you know, trying to figure out what they're doing, and, you know, Dean's like, yes, I would love some champagne. And Sam's like, dude, he's not a waiter. And, you know, that's where they do their posing as the art merchants and everything. And Daniel's...
Is Sam really the only one who's really actually able to pull it off?
Somewhat. But Daniel is still suspicious.
Oh, yeah.
Side note, Daniel Blake is played by Keith Gordy. We see him come back in season 10 as the warden of the jail where Tommy was being held before Kane came and took him away to kill him because he was killing everyone in his bloodline.
Oh, that's right.
And so maybe this guy could be the same guy. He just changed his name after...
Changed his name and his profession?
Which episode was... You know, it might have been before that, because Sarah comes back in a later episode when they're trying to seal the gates of hell forever, because Crowley is killing all of the people that they helped in season 1.
Yeah.
And I don't know if if they saved her or not. Like, I don't remember. So maybe if they didn't, you know, Mr. Blake just kind of fell on hard times, went through a name change and a profession change. And
I don't think they do save her in that episode, just because there is one that dies basically in Sam's arms, And the only one I think they're able to save is the sheriff. And then they have to come to terms with Crowley, or at least find his bones and all that.
Right. Which would that be? But season 10, is that before or after they try to seal the gates of hell?
You're thinking way too much about it.
No headcanon this episode.
It would have been before then, because I think that happened in season... Oh, Lord.
Anyways, we're wasting time at this point. Anyways,
now you've got me on it.
So, Dean's being Dean, just the, Mr. Blake's just like, well, I don't know if you're on the guest list. Well, check again, Chuckles. And Sam's just like, what are you doing? So they go looking, they find the creepy painting. And this is where Sarah kind of comes in, and she mentions that the painting style is, kind of American primitive. And Sam's like, well, I would find it more Grant Wood, no relation, as opposed to Grandma Moses. But you knew that already, didn't you? Grant Wood was noted as doing more of American Gothic style. So, for anyone that was curious, that's what my research has indicated. I don't know why.
That were the inside art jokes that they were making to each other.
Sam and Dean are trying to get info on the painting, but Mr. Blake shows back up, and he's like, apparently you're not on the guest list. You need to get out. And then, of course, you got Dean. Well, you don't need to tell us twice. Apparently I do. So they get kicked out, and Dean convinces Sam to call Sarah to go out on a date to try to get more information. And so he does. There's a little bit of a connection there. Sarah's kind of down to earth as Sam's trying to be all fancy and looking through the wine lists, and Sarah's like, I'll just have a beer. That sounds great.
Yes.
So we get back to their groovy motel that they're at, which, by the way, when they first get into their groovy motel, there's another slight moment of, I guess, kind of Sam and Dean talking at the same time, but all they have is just a, huh. But, clip for you if you want it. So we get back to the groovy motel, and Sam's going through like the information that he got from Sarah, and reveals that that's all that he got was just information. Like he doesn't want to do anything else. Like he's just here to get the job done, and that's it. And Dean's kind of like, come on. We get Sam and Dean. They figure out it's the painting because the owners of that painting match up with all of the deaths that they had found in their dad's journal. So they break in, they steal the painting, and they burn it. But it just comes right back. I guess what they failed to do is they didn't salt the painting before they burned it.
That would have been an idea.
And I wonder if that would have stopped it.
They salt and burn everything.
Except that painting.
Except that painting. Their barbecue, they salt and burn everything. Except that one painting, where it would have been really beneficial to probably salt and burn the damn thing.
Now watch, as we cut to the clip of like them putting salt on the painting. Whatever. But I don't believe they put salt on it. So we get the next morning, Dean can't find his wallet. He's like, I must have dropped it at the warehouse. It's got my fingerprints, my IDs, all this stuff. Well, my fake IDs, but still.
All the incriminating evidence of other things, not just breaking and entering.
So they head back to try to find Dean's wallet, and Sarah's there and starts talking to Sam, and then Dean shows up and was just like, oh, hey, here's that $20 I owe you, by the way. I've had my wallet this whole time. I tricked you.
To try and go talk to this girl more.
Yeah. Come on. Do something. Preferably her. Sam's talking to Sarah, and all of a sudden he's like, oh my God, that painting, it's just, woo! I guess we are going to be sticking around for a while. I was wrong when I said that we were leaving today. We still got work to do.
Ew.
So they go to investigate like the history of the painting, like the family that's in that painting and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So as they're investigating the painting, like they go to the library, and the librarian is giving them kind of history on the family and all this stuff as he's bringing them books and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the librarian's played by Jay. He doesn't get a last name.
Brazo.
So we're gonna say the librarian was played by Jay Brazo.
Jay, if you're watching that, I'm sorry.
So we're gonna say that the librarian was played by who?
Jay Brazo.
I cannot pronounce that last name to save my life, and I don't even know if he's doing it right.
I don't know either. That's what I'm saying. Jay, if you're watching this, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
If you come through our area of the woods, we owe you a beer if it's wrong. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
Anyways, he comes back in season 5 as a Dr. Corman. That's the episode where famine is attacking. So he's the doctor in that, whatever. Anyways, so they learn a bit more about the family history, and then we get back at the warehouse. Mr. Blake has sold the painting yet again.
Dang it.
Even though Sarah did not want him to.
Stop selling the haunted painting.
But she paid a lot of money for it.
But man, they really are moving quick as art dealers. They're going to be suddenly someone just got murdered. Normally you can't even get into the crime scene, and they're just like, and we're going to take this painting.
And sell it.
Yeah, and sell it. And it's been like a couple of days, maybe.
So we get back at the Groovy Motel. Sam and Dean, they're having some drama as that they're kind of like dealing with the fact that Dean's trying to hook Sam up, and Sam doesn't want to be hooked up, and
because he's still getting over his late fiance. And
well, and more than that is we get to when he's talking with Sarah, he feels like he's cursed.
Yeah.
Anyone that he gets close to dies, and so he doesn't want to get close to people.
And which would come to fruition in that later on season, unfortunately. Not
Possibly.
the curse part, but
well. So Sam calls up Sarah, to look into that painting, and finds out that it has been sold again. So they go over to Evelyn's place, but they're too late. She's already got the Colombian necktie.
Oof.
And Sarah's with Sam and Dean. She found it. She lied to the police for them, but is like, I'm about to call them right back because what is going on? And so they tell her the truth. And, she's skeptical at first, but they're like, look at what's happened. Come on. So she believes them. They then start looking for where the family was buried to see what they can find there. And that's something that they noticed in the painting was like the mausoleum was in the background. And it's been noted that there's differences from the picture that they have of the painting and the painting itself. Like the father is looking down at the daughter and stuff like that. They go back to the crime scene. They're looking at the painting to find clues and everything. And Dean notices that the razor has changed. And there's some discrepancy in this. Reportedly, Dean says, Jared, come take a look at this, or something. But he kind of mumbles, and so it's debatable on whether he says Jared or Sam, because it could kind of sound like Sam, and I don't know if they, for DVDs or whatever, tried to edit it. And if you listen to the clip, which I'm sure we can at least put that in.
Sam, check it out. Sam, check it out.
It could sound like Sam or Jared, which is weird, because you wouldn't think that it could sound like both of those, but here we are.
Yep.
So, anyways, so they go to the couple cemeteries, find the crypt, they break in, and they find everybody was buried there except the father. And so, we get some creepy dolls that are there and everything. Dean finds where Isaiah was buried, meanwhile, Sam and Sarah talking. That's where Sam reveals that he feels like he's cursed because anyone he gets close to dies and all that. And turns out Isaiah was not cremated like everybody else. He was buried away from the family because his family was ashamed of him because he killed his family, is what they believe.
Yep.
So they go and they dig up his grave. They salt and burn the bones. Ta-da, we're done.
Bye-bye.
So they go to get rid of that painting. They go back to the crime scene, go into the house, and then the door slams shut. And Dean's like, was that you that slammed that door shut? And he's like, no. It's not us. We think it's the daughter, not the dad. And they're like, well, how? And then Sarah reveals that she knows some history about old-timey creepy dolls, that they were, made with like actual hair from the child and stuff like that. So the doll could be remains that are allowing her to still be a ghost and be around.
It's what's basically anchoring her to the earth.
Yeah. So Dean's going to back to the mausoleum to take care of that, and then Sam and Sarah just have to survive.
Yep, just hang in there.
So they're looking for salt or iron in order to repel the spirit. And there's a bit of Sam in there, and he's, what kind of house doesn't have salt in it? Low sodium freaks. And they're looking wherever they can to find salt or iron.
Yeah.
And for some reason don't check the fireplace, which is what ends up happening is, the daughter shows up and, they end up backing into some fire tools and Sam whoosh. And it's just like, well, why wasn't that the first place you checked?
Yeah.
Anyways, Dean rushes over to the mausoleum. He breaks in, and let's see how many clips we can get in here, because I like this part also, because he's trying to break in through the glass. He pulls out his gun and uses it like a hammer, and then goes to find another tool. And he's, come on, Dean. Which I like that part. So if we can get that come on, Dean, in there.
Come on, Dean. Come on, Dean.
He goes back, he shoots through the plexiglass or whatever it was, pulls the doll out, and burns the doll, which must have smelled horrible, because he's just burning hair.
Yep.
And anyone who's ever burned hair before knows that does not smell great.
Anyone who's gotten a little too close to their fireplace.
Anyways, so the spirit goes away, everybody's safe, and it cuts to, the next day they're packing things up, and there's some people that are moving it, and they're like, where do you want this painting? Like, take it out back and burn it. No, I'm serious, guys. And I'll give them a little bit of leeway right here. If you look at the box after they pack up the painting, they start carrying it away upside down. But she did say take it out back and burn it, so maybe they just don't care that it's upside down because they're going to burn it anyways. So, I don't know. Anyways, then, we get a little more back and forth with Sam and Sarah. They're getting ready to leave. Dean's kind of disappointed, but then Sam goes back and he moves in for the kill. Not kill, but, he goes in for the kiss and everything. And that's my boy. And that's just kind of...
awkward older brother, like...
Yeah. Anyways, so that's kind of where we end our episode there. So, I've rambled on for much longer than I normally do, debatably.
There are a lot of recurring actors in this one.
That right at the beginning, even.
Yeah.
So, anyways, what do we got with iron?
So this is going to be... We heard about iron being utilized as a weapon against ghosts in, when we were first looking at ghosts, and we even took a look at the salt episode. But this is where we actually get to see it utilized as a weapon against ghosts. And traditionally in old English lore, in old English mythology, and old Celtic mythology, iron has been a staple in keeping out negative and evil spiritual entities. They were fantastic defense against things like fairies, They were great against things like ghosts.
Fight those fairies.
Fight the fairies! Yeah, well, I mean, as we see in later on seasons, not all fairies are necessarily like, you know, the Tinkerbell Disney benevolent fairy that's just like maybe there to cause a little bit of mischief.
Speaking of that episode, microwaves also work well.
Yeah, microwaves also work very well. Well, I don't think the old Celts had radiation that they could use against fairies. But iron was kind of the go-to in order to protect yourself from the supernatural beings. Now, looking back at the Striga episode where I was looking at concentrated wrought iron rounds being able to kill a Striga.
Say that 3 times fast.
I'd rather not try. Concentrated wrought iron rounds. Concentrated wrought... No, I'm going to try anyway.
I'd rather not try. Watch me try!
Watch me try! And I happen to mention that regular iron, that it would have to be concentrated, because it was wrought iron instead of cold iron. Turns out that's a mistake on my part.
Oh.
Is when you look at the old mythologies...
Normally I'm the one making mistakes.
When you look at like the old mythologies, it constantly refers to cold iron as being the thing that's going to be the most effective against a supernatural being or supernatural entity. And wrought iron is not cold iron. Wrought iron is just after cast iron. So it has to get heated up to a very high temperature in order to be molded and shaped into what it is. And especially if you're going to make a bullet out of it, it has to essentially get turned into a liquid in order to be poured into the die. So I'm thinking that that's not going to work, so that's why it has to be consecrated. Turns out, you know, there are certain sayings that we have, like eat my cold steel, or like eat hot lead, things like that you hear in action movies, or even just, I don't know, maybe your day-to-day life if you live an exciting life. Cold iron was just a poetic way of saying iron. So, in much as we would say, eat hot lead, eat my cold iron, you would say as you're like trying to stab someone with your iron knife. I don't know what the old Celts and the old English did, but that was just a very poetic way of saying it. It could also be inferred to, there is a cold forging process, but generally speaking, iron and steel don't go through those processes because of the high carbon content. Anyway, getting back to the actually mythology of it, so wrought iron rounds would have actually worked great against the Striga because just about any supernatural being that comes in contact with iron will burn. Historically, mythologically. In fact, there are even, if you took an iron knife and buried it under the first part of your house, it would make witches unable to enter into your house. It would basically be a block against witches and other supernatural beings, as if you put an iron knife under your doorstep. You also couldn't take iron into the fairy realm, essentially, as bringing that iron into that different part of the realm would basically be bringing in a very earthly material into the realm. Iron was very much considered that this is man's element, whereas Mother Nature has, you know, the 4 elements: fire, water, air, and earth. Iron was very much man's element. Go planet! With a sword. That was very much man's element. That was very much, this is what belongs to us as men and women and as human beings on this planet, which is why it was so effective against unearthly and unhuman creatures of the time. Now, here's one of the things, though, is that we don't really see much iron anymore. We see iron in a lot of things like nails and maybe some smaller amounts, but we're not necessarily going to see a lot of iron, say, in the fireplace poker. A lot of those are now steel that have been roughened up to try and look more and more like it's actually iron, because steel is just much more, it's superior to iron in a lot of ways, which is why it was able to replace so many tools. It was able to replace so many, weapons being one of the biggies, looking at like swords of the time. If there would be iron swords, there would be iron knives, but generally steel was much more sought after. And during the...
That could factor into why they didn't check the fireplace right away.
And And so while it would be available, and they do exist to have actual iron implements like that, they would probably be a lot harder to find, a little bit rarer to find. In certain iterations, say if we're looking at in modern day supernatural storytelling, books like the Dresden Files or the Iron Druid Chronicles, which are very much considered urban supernatural books, which kind of fall into what supernatural is. You see them using things like iron pendants or even iron nails that they throw at their foes who happen to be fae or happen to be ghosts or anything like that.
What they need to do is just get a nail gun and then iron nail gun
and just like lay it down that way. But iron has always been very much like ingrained in that supernatural. This is something that will damage a supernatural entity. Now, where exactly that came from can actually be traced back. It's kind of questionable. No one's really sure where the idea of iron doing that damage comes from, but it could be thought of as the horseshoe, and how the horseshoe was considered luck, and that you would nail a horseshoe outside of your home in order to bring luck in and to keep out bad luck. You know, there were a couple different superstitions involving the horseshoe. It had to be found, it couldn't be given. And then there's some debate about whether or not it was the original owner of the horseshoe who got the good luck, or if it was the finder of the horseshoe that got the good luck. And there's also debates about whether or not you would want the horseshoe to have points up in order to hold all the good luck, or have points down in order to have all the good luck pour onto you. That was a big debate, but and it really depends on what culture you're looking at. But the big thing is that you have a horseshoe that is put onto a doorway, which was thought to have also originated, to go even deeper into that myth, by a Catholic saint who was reshoeing, he was originally a blacksmith, and the devil came to him to have him reshoe his horse. Well, he was able to trick the devil and actually nailed a horseshoe onto the devil's hoof. It was at this point that it caused the devil a great deal of agony and pain, and he demanded to have the horseshoe removed, and he agreed to remove the horseshoe, but only if he would leave families be that had a horseshoe nailed to the wall. And that's where the thought of the horseshoe being good luck, and which could even go, that's a little bit chicken of the egg, or the chicken or the egg. Was iron considered a holy weapon before the horseshoe myth, and therefore horseshoes became lucky because they were originally iron? Or were iron horseshoes considered lucky, and then iron itself became considered a pure, righteous thing against ghosts and goblins and witches? That one is pretty much going to be lost to history, and even just lost to, depending on which culture you're looking at, because you're looking at so many different tribes, especially in the Gaels. If you're looking at the Old English tribes, and even some of the Welsh and Danish tribes that this would have all been coming from, which all got kind of jammed together and started creating mythology, it's going to be hard to tell. But the one thing that does stay is that if you've got iron, and you suspect there's a ghost around, salt and iron do work. Of course, that's assuming that if you think ghosts are real.
Yeah.
I mean, it would never hurt to just have something iron that you can throw,
Or have salt that you can throw.
or salt that you can throw. It depends on how violent, I guess, your mood is, and how angry your wife gets if you accidentally hit her in the middle of the night. It's a ghost. Was that a nail? Oh, sorry, dear.
You know, they make salt guns
Oh yeah.
to kill flies or whatever.
I want one of those so bad.
Just have one of those around.
Ow! Or they wouldn't say ow, they just puff up in smoke, in which case you're like, uh-oh, that's not a good sign. Oh, this is bad.
If you shoot somebody with a toy-looking
Salt
gun and they disintegrate, something bad has happened.
Nothing good. That, or your friendly neighborhood house ghost, and you just shot him and just made him all ticked off.
No. I mean, how friendly were they if that small inconvenience turn some violent.
Fair point. I think there's a couple cultures where there are house ghosts, and if you're good to the house ghosts, they're super chill with you, and they're like whatever. And it takes one minor slight, and they will turn mischievous and turn sometimes angry.
Okay.
I mean, they're friendly house ghosts up until you tick them off. The problem is sometimes you don't even know what's going to tick them off. You just do something. They're like cats. You do something, they just look at you glaringly like, you son of a bitch.
I demand 3 pets.
Exactly.
Any more, and I will end you.
I have told thee thrice. So, Matthew, which kind of episode are we going to sink our teeth into next time?
I believe you know. This one is near and dear to my jacked up teeth. The vampire.
Good old dead man's blood. So tune in next week as we take a look at some of our fanged friends, the vampires, and the episode that goes along with them.
Meanwhile, I start work on the more badass version of Captain Planet. Earth, fire, wind, water, iron. Go planet!
Wait, what happened to Hart? Nope, it's iron.
He's more of a soldier this time.
Captain Planet, he's a Viking.
I don't know what rhymes with Viking.
I'm desperately thinking of that too. All right, I got nothing. So
he will kill all things to your liking.
Okay, that's a good one. He's a Viking, killing all the things to your liking.
He's got a sword of iron. So yeah. Until next time.
Tune in next week where we have a weird Captain Planet. But
yes.
Yeah.
Stay safe, buckle up, and we've got work to do.